I'm Nirmal Bajaria, Director of NB Pharmacy in Gravesend. I have been in community pharmacy from the very first day I qualified back in July 1984, and I worked in the same shop for the last 32 odd years. I was employed here in 84 and then bought the business in 1985, and since then that's where I've been and grown the business from there. I took the business over in 1985 and the blacklist had just been published. A lot of you may never have heard about this blacklist, but it meant a lot of things that doctors were putting on prescriptions were no longer allowed. And there were a few concerns at that time. But life carried on. Gradually, we lost the global sum, which again came as a bit of a shock, where it was cut down and we had to adjust with the various cuts. Then came the category M, clawbacks, etc. again. But the worst scenario is where we are now. So we first heard about this around about a week before Christmas, December 2015. When the letter arrived, it was soon announced in the pharmacy media. Colleagues were talking amongst themselves. And because of the Christmas, people tend to forget it for a while. And come January, we started discussing, reading about it, attended meetings organized by the PSNC and various other buying groups like my Avicina buying group. We were starting to look into detail what these cuts would actually mean. Things were not quite sinking in. And going into about June 2016, around May or June 2016, we found out that the bigger boys like the multiples were ahead in the game, and they were already, they understood this cutbacks better than I or other colleagues did. And they were very good. They had started talking about cutting staff and making other various adjustments in their businesses to cope with these cutbacks, or doing extra services, whatever. But again, we never, or I never looked at it in that serious matter, relying on my official bodies to deal with it. At that time, I didn't quite really grasp what the effects would be. But when the check arrived last month, that's when I was on the phone with other colleagues who were going through the same experience. The cutbacks are much higher than what they say on paper. We had a staff meeting and we went through explaining to the staff what sort of cuts are expected. We warned them about the possibility of cutting their hours. We mentioned it to customers about our delivery service, that where we were delivering 2 to 3 times a month to them, we may have to cut it down to once a month. We also told the staff about cutting back purchases, so our stock holding is very minimal now. So we've started to make a few adjustments, but I don't think now that the check is here on the 1st of March, it has worked, and we need to make some further changes. The way my staff felt about the announcement I made to them about the cutbacks, I don't think it sank in straight away, but over the next few weeks, as they saw the funding challenge come out into the media on various TV channels, that's where they started realizing that it would cause an impact on their livelihood in the long run. So we have had a second meeting where we've discussed making the necessary efficiencies in the business and see what can be done to minimize the impact of the cutbacks. I have contacted my bank manager, and judging by the fees we are receiving now, I will need an overdraft. I haven't had an overdraft for the last 10 to 12 years, been very fortunate, but these cutbacks would mean that I'm not able to afford to pay my wholesaler and other expenses with the NHS check. In the long run, in the next 6 months, I would be looking at what I spoke about earlier, making some adjustments to staff hours, cutting down on other overheads, etc. I have to sit down and look into this seriously. Apart from that, I can't say much on that. In the long run, again, I'm hoping things will stabilize after 4 to 6 months, and I'll have to look into it and take it on from there. It is very worrying. I had planned I would be retiring in another 8 years' time, but it might even be sooner. I'm worried for my staff, where I may have to make some cuts to the staff. But at the moment, yes, I am very worried what the future of pharmacy is going to be. It's people like internet pharmacies, people like Pharmacy to You are really breaking up our local communities. It's a lot has changed. They're talking about bringing in Amazon-style business models, etc. So, yeah, they're looking into complete modernization of pharmacy, and I dread to think if we can exist after 5 years or not. I think there will definitely be some closures. Very difficult to put a figure, but I would say in excess of 1,500 to 2,000 pharmacies around the country would close, and we don't know what 2018 holds when they announce further into the contract what adjustments they want to make. But the way it's going, how would I put it? I would say it's like a ship without a captain. The Department of Health doesn't know where they're heading. There is so many different bodies coming out with different opinions. So it would be nice if there was one voice which would make it very clear where we stand, rather than make last-minute announcements and make the future very uncertain for us. The distance a local community pharmacy goes for a particular patient, whether it's delivery or prescription, obtaining their prescription, getting in touch with their GPs to solve a problem on a prescription, I don't know who would be doing all these things, and that's all done free of charge. We've tried to suggest a charge on delivery, etc. Patients are not very happy. It needs to be a more unified undertaking locally. If all the other pharmacies started charging for, say, example, delivery, the rest would follow suit. But if one is going to be charging and the others are providing free, we're going to lose business and patients. Looking at the single activity fee, it looks like immediately there'll be a rush of pharmacies chasing prescription, looking to increase their prescription volumes, which will cause a lot of competition among local pharmacies. It seems good for the patient initially. Obviously, what we don't realize is the pharmacy costs will be much higher to maintain that patient services, etc., that we're giving them. So initially it's good for the pharmacy, but in the long term, the fee is just not good enough to maintain your business, etc., as there'll be far more expenses than you expect. So it's really a loss leader. And in the long run, it's the patient who's then be suffering, or we may be compromising patient safety. If I could go back in time to December 2015, what would I do? Yes, I would look at my business in a totally different view. I would start looking at any cuts that I can make, like staff hours, streamline my finances, look at the free services I provide. Can I cut back on those? Cut down my borrowing, etc. But now that I've just received the check, I don't think even those cutbacks or efficiencies would have made much difference. In my 32 years in this profession as a pharmacy owner, I've never faced such a grim situation.